So the visit was short, and my dad left with his wife and went back to Kentucky. And when my father re-entered my life years later, he claimed he had been an evangelist for 4 years and was trying to live right. He ended up leaving and divorcing Dora, for he supposedly caught her in bed with another man. During the years of separation, my mother's relationship with Mickey got worse. He would beat my mom. He would lay his hands on me quite a lot. He rubbed himself, my body all over him and on his genitals. And me not knowing anything about a man's genitals and right from wrong, I didn't know that he was using me as a toy when he was erect. Another time, after we had moved to Florida for about a year, he had made my mom give up my little cousin Sean and taken his 3 daughters. This was when I was very much a little tomboy. We would play with the boys in the neighborhood, ride bikes, climb trees, collect lizards and gardener snakes, watch them in jars, and scare our parents with them. Some scary events that happened that year in Florida that I recall was my mom would lay out in the sun sometimes while we would play. Once I remember a huge black snake slithering around in the front yard. As I approached, I screamed and Mickey came out and tried to kill it with a rake. I don't remember if it got away or what happened. And that kind of scared me and made it hard for me to climb the orange trees and grapefruit trees after that. I remember I had gotten a very serious fear of snakes. Another time while playing outside, a man approached me in his car asking me for directions. As I came near him and looked, he had his private parts out and his hand was on it, and he was trying to get me to come closer and get in his vehicles. And I remember screaming and running toward the house, and my mom told me not to go up to cars and strangers, that somebody could try to kidnap me, and she spanked me. And that's all that she said. Now, Mickey and my mom had a party one night from what I remember, and I don't know exactly what was going on. I was just a child. I was asked to dance, and I was made to go to my room, and I heard a lot of noise and arguing and fighting. And from what I recall, I don't know, it's a very big possibility that my mom got raped by Mickey and his friends. I can remember her getting seriously beat and her head bashed into the faucet and into the basketball court, and me screaming and trying to stop it all. And all of this event, I can't remember everything exactly. I do remember that we left Florida afterwards and went back by her family's. And I don't know why she ended up taking Mickey back completely. I do know that it had something to do with my Aunt Cindy. He had blackmailed my mom and told her that he would turn Cindy into welfare for getting welfare illegally. She was living with Richard and drawing public aid, and she had daughters, and my mom did not want to see her sister go to jail for fraud, and so she went back to Mickey. And I went through some traumatic events with Mickey. He had one time got my mom to let me go with him to West Virginia to see his daughters when my mom had said she couldn't handle his kids anymore. His daughters were like really disobedient. They were, I think, very messed up and suffering from PTSD. They claimed to me one time that their father had killed their mother. They thought that she fell out of a window, and they believed that he pushed her out the window. And it's really sad. But when we went to see them, my uncle Bobby did go with, thank goodness, because Mickey was being very very abusive on the trip there and back, and making a lot of threats. And when we returned to Illinois from West Virginia, there were plates in the living room and signs, I guess, that my mom had company, and he was very suspicious that she had been cheating or was with another man. He was making all kinds of accusations. And when we went to my Aunt Cindy's to find my mom, he made threats that, she better show up. When she ended up calling to him down the alley, he went up to her and grabbed her, pulled a knife, and I believe he had a gun too, out on me and my mom, forced us to go back to the apartment with him, and I believe he was raping my mother in the room. I think he had locked me in a closet or something. I can't remember exactly, but I do remember the cops showing up and my father being there. That was when I first seen my dad in years. He came to rescue us and was my hero. He had been seeing my mom during that short time that we were in West Virginia, and he went to Illinois to see my mom and I, because him and Dora had broke up. And so now, after my parents reconciled, we left Chicago promptly and went to Kentucky so my dad's family could see my mom and I. They had not seen me since I was a very little girl. And my grandma Jewel, she seemed very happy to see me. She had brown curly hair, and my dad had a mixture of his parents, green and blue eyes. My grandma Jewel was very tall and thin and country looking, as well as my grandpa. They had a nice little country home on an acre of land. My grandma kept a garden, and she grew her own fruits and vegetables and canned and made homemade jellies and jams. She did make us some good country meals, and I can remember shortly after visiting there and meeting his family that we went to I believe it was Indiana for a short while, and my parents were having marital problems. I can remember hearing them fighting in the bedroom, and they had decided they were going to leave me with his mom for a while, and work out their marital problems, as they said, work out some of the kinks in their life. I really hated this because I was attached to my mom. I did not know Jewel. I did not, it was hard on me, and I suffered a lot of separation anxiety, and I remember crying for my mom, and I was only 7.5 years of age, and my grandma Jewel would leave me with my uncle sometimes to watch me. He had gotten out of the army, and many years later he apologized to me for what he did, and I forgave him. And long story short, he sexually abused me in that year that I was there. The memories of it are very painful. What vague I can remember, I believe I blocked it out, because many years later, when the truth of this events came out from me realizing I had been sexually abused, because I had been watching 2020 or some kind of show where they were talking about sex abuse, and I was crying, and I revealed what had happened to my mom. The whole family just kind of went crazy, and my uncle denied it, and my grandma made threats, and this went on and caused a lot of pain. I know I was put in counseling for a very short amount of time, and then made to get out of it. And I believe it was because of my father's pride. And mind you, up until the point that I had knew what was done to me was wrong, I had gotten sexually abused by other family members. My Uncle Fergie, my Aunt Debbie's husband, his brother, being tickled and fondled by cousins and men in the family. It was during the year that I stayed with Joel in Kentucky, though, that I was sent to church with her and learned about Jesus Christ and the cross and salvation. And, now I know about the paganism that's in Christianity, but there's still some truth in every religion, which will lead you into all truth. And I do believe that it was the faith that I did acquire in learning, some scriptures and listening to the preaching, that helped me have, morals and, an understanding of morals and right from wrong, and helped me with the confusion from the abuse that I had suffered. So, I attribute to my grandma Joel, even though her and I have had differences now that I'm older, and she has said a lot of things to hurt me, because when my father died, she took his death out on me, sad to say, and she has been mean to me ever since. And I think part of that is because my dad's not around to defend me anymore to his mother. I think my grandma had resentment toward me all of her life after I revealed what her son did, and her own pride. I know that the damage from what happened and with the sexual abuse, and then the problems that was going on in my parents' marriage when they did get me back from Kentucky and I went back to live with my mom and my dad, that when I became a teenager, I started making a lot of mistakes. And I believe that that was because my father was not there for me. My mom was so messed up from the abuse that went on with her and my father, and then her sister dying, and her losing my brother because of the domestic violence that happened in our home. They took me and my brother. So, I went through a lot of traumatic things. My dad and mom would get in fights, and my dad would beat my mom, and I would try to get my dad off on my mom, and then my dad would end up hurting me a lot of the time, and or tearing up the house. There were a lot of traumatic events, a lot of bad memories. One time, my mother ended up stabbing my father when he went out all night drinking and was gone all weekend. She threw out his clothes, and when he came back, he was beating her, and he would not stop, and she warned him to quit, and she had a knife in her bra because a woman had gotten raped in the laundry room of where we lived, and she had a pocket knife on her as protection in her bra, and she kept warning my father to quit, and he wouldn't, and she stabbed him. And I remember calling the law and asking for help, and them telling me to stop prank calling, this caused me to go through a lot. And in school I was mocked over this event. After this happened, my mom ended up moving from where this happened. It happened in Villa Verde in Buffalo Grove, Illinois. I was like, I think 10 at the time, 9.5, 10. It should be in the paper. My mother stabbing my father. Steve Musgrove and Vicky Musgrove, the big fight. And when my mom left when we left Buffalo Grove after that happened, she started to have an affair with her boss. I started to realize this after a while because he was paying for our hotel and she was seeing him on the side. I think he was cheating on his wife, and my mom was working for Crown Personnel at the time. And we ended up moving to Palatine, I think it was, and my father found my mom because she stayed at that job. He stalked her and forced her to go back to him, and that's when she got pregnant with my brother. He spent several days raping and beating my mom and locked me in a room. And we ended up moving from there into Sun Bay Apartments, I think it was. And I can remember just not feeling like I really had a friend in the world. Feeling very lonely and depressed and lost and sad. I was like looking all the time for love and affection. And I felt really lost, like I didn't belong. I couldn't stand the fighting between my parents. I was an only child. I did not have really any friends because sorry about my grandson crying. He probably wants his nana. My son's taking care of him right now. He's a young daddy, but I have to let him parent and do it on his own sometimes. I can't, and I want to work on my book, shortening it and redoing it. But I can see the pictures in my mind and remember different parties my parents had with my mom's sister Cindy being there with Richard, her husband, or my dad and mom partying with Deb and Ferg, and I saw marijuana and coke and drinking. And at the time, as a child, I didn't even know what those things were. But when I got older, I realized. And I had always wanted a sibling. And I remember my mother crying and having blood all over her. And when I got older, she explained to me that a little bit more. I mean, at my young age, when I caught my mom crying, going on and on, I asked her what was wrong. And she told me that, she lost a baby. One time she told me she had killed a baby, that my dad made her kill a baby. abort a baby. And I think that because he beat her and they had such bad marital problems, my mom did give in and have some abortions, probably out of fear, knowing that, you know, what she was going through with me. But she finally had another child with my father, my brother Kevin. And it's tragic what happened to Kevin. He got spinal meningitis at 6 weeks of age, I think it was. We had went to my cousin Selena's birthday party. It was around Halloween. And there were several children there. The doctor said he wasn't sure if he had gotten it from my grandmother Fronia giving him some custard from her birthday cake, or if it was a child there who had been found later on to have strep throat, or if it was my girlfriend Kim Hooker, I remember her name. Her sister, I had a crush on her brother Larry, had spinal meningitis when she was a little girl. And they say that once you have it, you're always a carrier. Now, when the doctor told my parents it might have been a combination of these things, or he wasn't sure what caused him to catch this and get this, my father went crazy and was wanting to kill Kim and her family. He blamed them wanting to kill my grandma. He was like, man, I finally got a son, and, you know, my brother was like dying in an incubator. They gave him 10% to live. When he first got sick, the first hospital my mom and I took him to misdiagnosed him and just said that he had a common cold, to take him home and give him Tylenol and Pedialyte. And my brother continued to scream hysterically like he was in pain. And so we took him, I think it was Children's Memorial Hospital, and that's where they said he had 10% to live, and that the disease had ate up it's through to his spine to his brain, and that he would be lucky if he lived. And my brother ended up being in the hospital for almost a year, and that really tore our family apart. And no one in my mother's family came to the hospital to visit. My parents basically had to bear the burden of the pain of this by themselves. And, you know, I look back and I realize now my mom's family, they used my mom and dad a lot just to furnish money for the birthday parties and holiday parties, and they bought all the food. They both had very good paying jobs, and would give the family money all the time and buy the children gifts. And, you know, it was very sad the way no one was really there for my mom and dad when my brother was in the hospital dying. And I can remember, almost dying, and I can remember my dad taking it out on me and my mom and getting drunk, and he had a really hard time coping with it because my brother Kevin almost died. I mean, he was in serious critical condition. He even lost the ability to suck a bottle. He forgot the natural instinct that a child is born with to suck a bottle. And I loved my brother. I was so happy when I finally had a sibling. He was like just a little gift from the Most High to me. Filling that void of loneliness that I always had. And when my parents would fight, I would protect him. I would run and, you know, make sure he was okay. I remember, you know, I was raised to keep a spotless house. My dad would like come in with a white glove, you know what I mean? He expected the house to be clean when he got home. And I did a lot, you know, for my mom in that regards because I didn't want her to get beat. And I had been taught to be clean, you know, and so, you there was just years of stuff going on with Kevin, and my parents' marriage ended up breaking up again when I was about 12 and a half, after Kevin had been born and all this illness had happened with Kevin, and he finally got out of the hospital and got better, but their marriage didn't get any better, and the beatings was still happening, and my father running out and getting drunk and being unfaithful. And I can remember being in this one apartment we lived, I think it was in Arlington Heights. My mom was working as an unemployment counselor at the time. She would cry, we would cry and listen to Jimmy Swiggert's record over and over. Sometimes Hallelujah, sometimes Praise the Lord, you know. But I interpret it sometimes Hallelujah now, and sometimes Praise the Most High, the highest of the high. I believe that everything I've suffered in my life was to get to this truth. But anyway, you know, my mom and dad ended up losing me and my brother because I had ran away one time, and DCFS came to our home and did an investigation and discovered that, in fact, my dad had been being abusive to me and my mom, and they made threats that if this happened anymore, they were going to remove us children. And my dad was very cocky with them and was like, don't tell me how to discipline my kids, and don't tell me I can't spank my daughter, and, you know, it's very sad. I loved my father, and I know that, I look back now and I know that he meant well. He wanted to discipline me, probably in the right way, but because he was raised in a home where he had been beat. I remember him telling me that, you know, his dad beat him one time when he stole a thing of acne cream, because he asked for $1 to get acne cream, and my grandpa wouldn't give it to him. He said his parents were misers and had all kinds of money and worked in factories and wouldn't give them a dime. He said they wouldn't even buy him a bike, that he had broke some, I think it was his arms or legs, going down a shopping cart one time because he didn't even have a bike, and, you know, he was doing something for kicks with his siblings. But you know, my parents ended up losing me and Kevin because of the abuse, and I remember I tried to commit suicide after they took my brother, because I just couldn't take anymore. My parents fought so much. My dad could be seriously abusive, and he had a very bad temper, and when he was drunk, it was like he didn't know what he was doing. I don't think he remembered what he did half the time, or that he saw red, and that when he did come to or realize when he was sober, he was very regretful, but at the same time, he had no self-control. So being abused himself as a child, because when I got older and became an adult and had 6 children of my own, I can remember my father telling me that he thought I was a wonderful, beautiful parent, and that I was a better mom than his mom had ever been. That all the gifts and goodness I showed my children, that I managed to do that with 6 children that he never seen his mom do so wonderfully and lovingly with just 4. He said that he was amazed at how good of a mom I was. And I look back now and I realize I spoiled my children a little bit too much sometimes. And I'm paying for it now, unfortunately. I love them with all of my heart and soul and mind and body and spirit, but my children, part of it is that I didn't get to finish raising them and disciplining them after I lost them 10 years ago. So, to return to my childhood, I did overdose on some pills and I ended up in the hospital. Woke up with them trying to pump my stomach. And I was in there for like 3 weeks, I remember. And when I got out, I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember I ended up in a foster home. And my brother and I both in there together. And I ended up running away with my brother because the foster mom was hitting my brother in the playpen. And I tried to express to her that he was a very ill child from having that illness, and she wouldn't listen. She wasn't having it, and she said I was trying to spoil my brother by holding him too much. And I remember pushing her or something and taking Kevin and running with him. And I got found by the police down the road. I don't know how far I had gotten. I don't remember if it was miles or what. And they separated my brother and I, said that I was an overprotective sibling. And I was put in a girls' foster home. And in that place, there were some bad girls in there. I remember some lesbian girls trying to mess with me in there, trying to molest me in the shower or approach me in the bed when I was in bed. I remember begging my mom and my Aunt Debbie to please get me out of there. I was very scared and I felt very uncomfortable. And the girls in there scared me. A lot of them were gangbangers and wearing all black and just very gothic. And it was just tragic to me. I remember they stole all of my clothes that my mom had sent me, that she had just bought me for the school year. And I never fit in anywhere because when we lived in Chicago when I was little, my mom dressed me so nice or whatever. She had a good paying job that I didn't fit in there. I had kids make fun of me of the dresses that I wore. And then when we moved to the suburbs, I didn't fit in there because all the kids were stuck up really big, rich snobs that wore, Calvin Kleins and Gloria Vanderbilts and all, all designer clothing. And I think my mom eventually started trying to buy me more clothes like that so that I would fit in. And my dad threw a fit. And I look back now and I realize that, he got mad. He did not want me wearing jeans. He didn't want me showing my body. And now I agree with him. But as a girl that was entering puberty, I felt my dad was being mean or strict or too strict on me. And mind you, my dad had made passes at me sexually. He tried to neck on my neck, holding me one time, when I was nuzzled with him on the couch. He pinched my boobs, my butt, made comments about my growing up body, this womanly body that I was starting to get. So, long story short, I go to stay with my Aunt Debbie for a while. She finally gets custody of me, and then she had Selena, Jasmine, and Adam. And I remember I loved my little cousin Adam. He was just a baby, and he gave me so much joy because I missed Kevin so bad, my brother. And that, I think I stayed with them like 6 months, and then I ended up with my girlfriend from junior high. Kim was her name. I thought she was my best friend. She had, been in school with me, when I tried to commit suicide before I got put in the foster homes. But my Aunt Debbie's husband, my Uncle Ferg, was a pervert. He was a sexual pervert, and he had gotten my Aunt Debbie to get into a lot of sexually perverting things, and I see that now over the years when I was growing up. And he would come on to me and pinch me and want me to massage him, and he did want to take my virginity. That once that I was there, had approached me in that way one night when he came home drunk, and I said no. And I remember it caused a big fight when I exposed this one night when my Aunt Brenda was there, before my Aunt Brenda had died. And so I end up getting taken out of there and put with my my girlfriend. And it's sad, but after I stayed with Kim for a while, I ended up having to leave there too. I think I was there maybe 6 months, and it was because when I came back to Walter Sunley Junior High, where I had been during 7th grade, and that I was very popular. When I came back, all the kids were like, wow, Sandy, you're back. And I guess they kind of all knew everything I had been through, with my dad getting stabbed years before, my brother being sick and in the hospital and almost dying, me being in foster homes, me being tossed all over the place. When I came back to school, a lot of people looked up to me like, wow, you're really strong. And there was a lot of boys that had crushes on me, and a lot of people were interested in me and how I had coped with everything and how I was doing. And so when I came back, I was really popular, and all the phone calls and all of the people wanting to hang out with me. Kim was my best friend at the time, but she got mad, she got jealous. She didn't want to share me, I guess is what it was. And I never meant to hurt her or make her jealous in any way. And some of the guys who had crushes on me, she had crushes on, and she was mad that they wanted to date me instead of her. And I really didn't even date anybody. I mean, I was young, and I'd hang out with the boys, and I remember kissing one of them, Chris Calhoun, I remember him. And Kevin McDonald, he had a crush on me too. I remember this girl, was her name Missy or Melissa or something? She was jealous of me. And so I end up, leaving there because she threw the phone at me. She threw some fits. You know, I told my counselor, Linda was an Indian woman. I remember her. She would always smell like patchouli oil. That was something my Aunt Debbie would wear. I loved the smell of that hippie smell, you know. And so, you know, Linda took me out of there and put me with my Aunt Cindy. Even though Cindy had a small little place, a little cockroach den, you know, she took me in. And it was that year that I worked at Dennis's Place for Games. I was in 8th grade, and my thought to be best friend at the time, Elizabeth, she talked me into pretty much losing my virginity, told me I wasn't cool if I didn't, and I was also told it had to be with a black guy because I had to prove I wasn't prejudiced because, you know, she was Puerto Rican. So, let me tell you something, people. I was really insecure and kind of naive. I had been so damaged from being tossed around, and I wanted love and friendship so bad that when I felt like I had a friend and someone who cared about me, you know, especially after what happened with Kim, I was so hurt. I didn't want to lose my friendship with Elizabeth. I wish I would have been more guided and had more parental guidance. My mother wasn't there for me. She was in mental hospitals a lot after she lost me and Kevin. And you know, it's not right what Cindy did. I believe she just took temporary custody of me for the money that the state was going to give her. She was working for a antique shop. And I remember when her boss came, she hid everything in her bedroom that she had in her living room. Like all these vases and fireplace Stoker things, Oriental things, and these expensive Mugstein things, and all this went into her bedroom when he showed up. She was ripping off her boss. And she did rip off, you know, the government for a check, as she ripped off my mom, taking my brother from my mom years later because of his money. I know that's why she did it, to get out of poverty. And supposedly I heard that she's been busted for embezzlement. And I don't know what's happened to my brother. And I really have got to try to find the strength to look into this. I hope my brother is okay. I'm overwhelmed, people, with things that have happened to me in my life. But long story short, that year I stayed with Cindy. That was the year that my Aunt Brenda got killed and died from a man that she was with, Shelby, who was abusing her and locking her and her children in their apartment with bars on the doors and windows, and we had to get the cops to get her out of there. And she had Hep D by then from the tally they were sniffing, and she was so far gone she died giving birth to her baby that was 4 pounds and put in an incubator. The whole family watched her die through a glass window and bleed from every crevice of her body. And this event really ruined my mom to where she had a nervous breakdown and was found walking down the road not knowing who she was, barefoot with her feet all cut up. It was around this time too I remember hearing that Vivian had gotten raped and tied to a tree by 3 men, and was raped. And, then Vivian's boyfriend gets killed by his mother. My mom ends up going off and tearing all the shelves and racks off my grandmother's walls and destroying all her knickknacks. My grandma calls the cops, and it took like 10 police officers to hold my mother down and put her in a straitjacket. She was so strong, and I seen some crazy stuff. It was at that year that I started dating. Like I dated Santos in 8th grade, which everybody was jealous about that. He was like the cutest boy in 8th grade at Hayden School where we went. And then I broke up with him and started seeing Diego, who ended up using me, trying to steal my gold, trying to take my virginity. Was a 2-timer and was seeing this girl Sally behind my back, whom he had been engaged to. I didn't even know. He was like many years older than me. There were a lot of punks in that Chicago, North Rogers Park area where I was at. And a lot of those punks tried to take advantage of me. And I was a young, pretty girl, and I think I needed attention and love so much because I was so broken over not having my father, not having my mother, being very insecure, being abused both sexually and domestically in my life growing up and seeing that. So I was a little bit messed up, and I did not have any real counseling or therapy that ever happened for me. And I started dabbling with marijuana and getting drunk here and there with other teenagers who, were like, hey, come on, drink some whiskey, Sandra, and I got sick as a dog, I remember. So, Cindy and Richard ended up getting a really big check from me and didn't tell me about it, and used it to buy a living room set. It was supposed to be to replace the clothes that had gotten stolen from me in the juvenile home that I had been in, where those lesbians had tried to mess with me. And I'm very much against lesbianism. I know that the Most High's true children seal the name of him in the foreheads of man, and they want women that have never tainted their self with lesbianism and having sex with a woman. That's why it says they are the virgins. And that's why I believe that Satan has tried to get me to commit that sin all of my life, so that he could prevent me from my mission, excluding me from that by getting me to commit that sin. So I think the Most High, the great I am, Hakadosh, that even though I had one time been approached by a woman sexually when I was 17, 18 years of age, with this girl Diane, who was in beauty school with me, because when I had my first child at 16 and got my GED and went to beauty school, one of the students with me that was in modeling school and in beauty school, me and her were partying one night, and I woke up with her trying to go down on me, and I pushed her off of me, and I was like, no way. We're friends, but not that kind of friends. We won't be lesbian friends. She's like, I love you though, Sandy. She used to dye her hair like Blondie. She'd wear it, like kind of like mine is right now. And I loved her, she was my friend, and her mom was gay, and I know she was messed up. But I was like, I can't do that with you, girl. I'm not like that. I don't believe in that. And it was like, I think a year after that I had went out with my Aunt Debbie, who was working as a bartender, And I went out with her and another woman, her friend that was named Debbie, who had stuck her tongue down my throat when we were dancing and tried to French kiss me. And I was like, whoa, and she tried to, my aunt had abandoned me with her, and I ended up having to go to her apartment. I was trying to get home, and she came out naked, walking out to me naked and wanted to have sex with me. And I was like, no. And she was a very beautiful, attractive woman. But I was like, no, I'm not like that. I don't do that, and I don't believe in that. I need to get out of here. Can you give me the money to take a taxi to go home? I had been drinking. I was drunk. I had done coke that night too. And I was like, oh my goodness. And it turned out too that girl was a call girl. She was a prostitute. And I found out years later that she got found dead on the top of a car. She had either killed herself or had been thrown out a window or something. She was found dead. So, I guess that's what lesbians get for messing with me. So at 14, I lost my virginity, and it was not anything I'm proud of or a memory that I even like to have. I didn't realize how important my virginity was, and to have given it away the way that I did so that I could be accepted by a girlfriend that I thought was my best friend and like a sister to me. I was dumb. I was stupid. It was stupid. It was wrong. And it really messed me up afterwards. I remember I went through a period of promiscuity after that. Like, as I didn't care, And it really, really messed me up. And when I was working at Dennis's Place for Games, I was making $2 an hour, working for cash under the table. I had worked at McDonald's that year too. That's where I met my first son's father, good old Mayhar. And I remember they used to call him Hamburger. And I remember I didn't want to even date him when I first met him because he was fat, he was overweight. He was good looking in the face and stuff, but he wasn't my type. He was short. And my cousin Danielle talked me into going out with him. It's just like, well, all the, handsome guys you dated and turned out to be assholes. Why don't you give this guy a chance? So he was like, looks ain't everything, Sandra. So I ended up, going out with him. We went to see the movie Psycho. I remember my cousin double dated with us, my cousin Danielle. And I ended up giving this guy a chance, and guess what? Years later, after me being pregnant and having his baby, his dad dying, and he felt responsible for his dad dying because his dad had a heart attack. They had a grocery store, and his dad had a heart attack when he went to the hospital to see him because he turned the water on him, and it was cold, and his dad ended up having another heart attack in the shower. So he felt responsible for his dad's death and got very destructive afterwards and was doing coke and drugs. And, after I had the baby, he ends up going out. He was a DJ, and he screws around on me with this girl named Jenny Garcia. She was this Puerto Rican girl. He comes home with lipstick on his collar. My girlfriend Maria Davila, who was my best friend at the time, she heard about it and told me about it too, that he had supposedly cheated on me with this girl after me having his baby. And we got in a fight about it, and he was trying to strangle me. And his mom, Carmen, comes walking in the room and stops him. And that's when I left him. And 3 months later, he ends up raping me. And I'll tell you what, he's talked crap about me to my son, and so is his family. But he's lucky he didn't go to jail because I had evidence against him raping me. He thought that because I had his kid, he had the right to take it. And I ended up going back to him even after this. And he still was doing coke and had gotten abusive and pulled a knife out on my child, said he was going to kill our baby one time when he was all coked up. And I said, that's it, I'm done, I'm going to leave your ass. Because, you know, he was jealous that I'd go to the beach sometimes when he was at work, and he came home and he saw me with tan lines because I had went to the beach with my son or was making friends, and he was very jealous. And, I ended up leaving him. John, the man I met, and this girl, Heather, who saw that he had beat me up, I had black eyes, she got me out of there one day when he was at work and helped me move in with her boyfriend and his cousin. They took me in. And that's when I got my GED and went to beauty school, and I tried to better myself. But it was during that 3.5 years that I was with John that I was still messed up over my childhood, over Mayor, my first, my first baby's daddy. And I ended up, being promiscuous and cheating on John. And I ended up having an abortion with our baby, which ruined our relationship. He was a pretty good guy, and he tried to reach me when I went to visit family in Chicago, and wrote me letters and wrote me songs. And I didn't know love when I had it, but after I left John and left Florida to go back to Chicago to help my mom had ended up finally getting my brother back and getting a house for him in Skokie. When I came back to Illinois, little did I know that my mother's family had been drugging her. They were trying to set her up to lose Kevin and lose the money again. I walked into a trap. And I think that because I was trying to get over my relationship with John, and because I ended up hanging out with my cousin Selena, who was being very promiscuous at the time and hanging around with a lot of the wrong people, that it was around then that I met the next John, the one that I would end up marrying and having 4 sons by, and was with like 14 years. It was then that a lot of tragic things would happen, and it would be because my brother had been abused in the foster home by a cop who would lock him in a cage and was sexually abusing him, we found out. And he ended up acting it out on my son, my first child, Adrian. And I reached out for help about the whole situation, what I walked into, what I seen. And the state ended up taking my kid and then taking my brother. And my Aunt Cindy ended up taking advantage of the situation, talking my mother into talking the state into giving her Kevin. Me temporarily gave my grandmother my son, and it turned into a freaking nightmare. My mom lost Kevin. Her own sister caused her to be kicked out of my brother's home. She was even so petty to the fact that she kept my mother's pictures, clothing, everything she had ever had and acquired in her lifetime. Cindy confiscated. changed the locks on the house and kicked me and my mom out. Wouldn't even give me back my books, my photo albums, or my mother's. And even my book called Competency in Cosmetology. She wouldn't even give me back my beauty school books. It's really cruel and cold what Cindy did. All the beautiful suits my mom had when she worked as an unemployment counselor and saleswoman. She had suits that were velvet, that were gorgeous, that she paid tons of money for. And Cindy kept all of it. Kicked my mom out on the street, and my mom was forced to live. She lived with her mom for a while, and then she was with different men who abused her, and ended up getting more messed up in bad, tragic relationships, even with men who cut her, drugged her. My mom ended up being an alcoholic for 10 years after she lost Kevin. She was so broken and devastated because we fought for Kevin for over a year, and Cindy got... my brother was the type of person you could tell him, we went to Great America together yesterday, didn't we, Kevin? We had a great time. He'd go along with you and say, yeah. He had no memory, and they got him to say in court, they wouldn't allow me and my mom in the courtroom when this supposedly happened, but supposedly he told the courts that my mom sexually abused him. And how could someone who was 9.5 years of age at the time, who was diagnosed to not have the mentality past like a 5-year-old, how could they be considered competent? And I had just revealed to them that Kevin had told me during a visit that Cindy and Richard were telling him to say bad things about me and my mom, and were abusing him. It was all a setup, and it was all for money, and the truth always comes out, and everyone will reap what they sow. There will be a recompense to everyone who's ever... The love of money is the root of all evil. And the Most High, the great I am, Hawa Kadesh, He knows. And see, what hurts is my cousins who I grew up with, her daughters, Sherry, Danielle, and Felicia, it really hurt me that they even let their mother get away with the evil that she did. But, of course, they benefited from it. And materialism, a lot of people get caught up in materialistic ways and desires and selfishness. And the thing is it's not so much the money and robbing my mom, because my mom was the one who sued the hospital that misdiagnosed my brother and sued, got the money for him, the settlement for him. And she didn't ask for anything for herself. She could have had an emotional damage settlement for herself, but she figured she was going to raise my brother. She never knew this was going to happen, that she'd lose him. So, it's not the money, losing the money that hurt me and my mom. It's losing Kevin. Because if they could have been kind enough to at least still let us see him and be a part of his life, because they wanted the money so bad, then it wouldn't have been as hard. But they completely caused the state to go along with their little cut me and my children out of my brother's lives. My sons have never even known their uncle. This all happened in I married John in September of 1990 and had Brian in November of 91. My mom lost the custody case in January of 1990. So I haven't been able to really be a part of my brother's life in, 25 years? So every time there's been a loved one that's died, every time there's been a funeral, even when our mom died and I asked them for help to pay for her funeral, my mom had to sit on ice for 6 days. And believe me, my brother's estate could have paid for my mother's funeral, and Cindy wouldn't help me with the situation. So anytime, like when my grandma died, my mom's mom, anytime there was when Debbie died, when Debbie got married, anytime there was any Cindy, I couldn't be there and I couldn't be a part of it. I couldn't see my brother, and neither could my mom. And the rest of the family went along with this because she pretty much paid them off. She'd pay for the parties and the food and give them gifts, and they were all bought. You know what I mean? They didn't want to go against Cindy and say anything because then they couldn't see Kevin, or they couldn't, get money spent on them. Whereas if they had really done what was right by me and my mom would have took care of them. The thing is that before my mom lost Kevin, when she finally got him back after years of fighting to get him back, I think she had lost him for a total of like 6 years. She bought washers and dryers for my grandma and microwaves and gave Cindy and Richard money. She took money out of the money she'd get every month, the allotment from his estate, which they have gotten every month from being his caretakers. And she would spend it on her family, at least $500 to $1,000 a month. So all I know is that what comes around goes around, and you reap what you sow, and every dog has its day. And I have been through hell and back with family like what I've had, who needs enemies, as they say. And I have prayed for these people that their souls could be saved, that they could be forgiven, and that they would humble themselves and ask me for forgiveness and try to make things right with me and restore all that's been lost by bringing about reconciliation. But you can't make people do anything. Like that old saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So even with my book that I have wrote in exposing all evil that's been done, to humble people, because they really need to be humbled. And believe me, I've humbled myself by exposing what I do in my book. And because I've done some things that I'm not proud of, that as we continue in this chronological order of my life, that I will reveal, and that I revealed in my book, Clearing My Heavenly Father's Name. This book is just a shortened, revised version, and with less detail, and and with more correction, because you have to realize that in the traumas that I've suffered and all that I've been through, to remember everything correctly without crossing memories, or one event to another, it's been difficult, because a lot of my childhood I tried to block out. I tried to repress it and forget it, because the memories of it would cause me to cry and have pain when I became a teenager, and when I became a mother and started having children. And I've had 8 pregnancies. I have 5 living children. I have 3 that are in heaven now. But when I started becoming a mother and raising children and having children, I would look back and think, how could a parent do the things that mine did? Or how could relatives hurt loved ones the way that mine did? When, becoming a mom really refined me and taught me unconditional love and taught me to be really sacrificial. And ultimately, it's not a bad thing, because everything works out for good for those who love, righteousness and goodness in the Most High, who will usher the kingdom of heaven in. But that sacrificialness caused me to neglect myself and lose myself, and I ended up in an affair after 14 years of being with Johnny, who was the father, my first husband, the father of my 4 sons. And I had one with my high school sweetheart, and then Teresa is the product of the affair that I had when I cheated on Johnny. And so that's the end of this video for now, and on this chapter of the book. And I will return to do another one with you all, for you all, as soon as possible. And I at this point don't know if I'm going to end up having the books put on eBay, or if I'll ever make a dime from it. I don't really care. I didn't do it for money. I did it to tell the truth and to save souls and to share my life story, to help anyone and everyone who's ever been a domestic violence victim, a sex abuse victim. I did it to help my children, to heal them, to help bring healing to them and to family, friends, and loved ones, anyone who have suffered in the mistakes I made in life. I did it to reach out to loved ones, to bring out the truth, I had to expose the truth of my sins in life and what I did wrong and the sins that have been done against me. And it was all for the purpose of, also exposing who the enemy is and what the Most High's true name is. The title of my book shows the purpose of my book when I wrote Clearing My Heavenly Father's Name. And this namesake confession, revised version, is, the title saying, for my namesake and for the Most High's namesake, I'm making these confessions. I am confessing His name and confessing my name to be cleared, and for my name to be written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And for the sake of truth and the sake of righteousness, and for the kingdom of heaven to be ushered in, the Malahim of the Shamayim is how you say it in Aramaic Hebrew, for Hawa Kadesh to undo everything Satan has done and to completely save my soul and set my soul free. I claim that the Vatican does not own my soul. Satan does not own my soul. I'm not going to be recycled or reincarnated or have to come back here again and go through this hell again. I'm not going to be robbed. I found so much out about this false banking system and false the maritime laws and the false, that we're under America, a corporation. These laws here are fraudulent. When you're sovereign and if you're from the Most High, the highest of the high, you don't have to abide by this. I'm not any longer lost at sea and lost in these lies and deceit that are here to take your soul anymore. And the vampires are not going to take my soul, my blood, my power, my organs, or live off of me or use me as a resource. When I did this book so that my name would be written in the Lamb's Book of Life, and to pour out the truth and pour out my soul to the world to help save the souls in this world that can be saved. Because believe me, my message is not for everyone. The book of Enoch exposed the fallen angel agenda. There are lost demonic evil entities here. I do not know how many people can be saved. When it says there's only one doomed to destruction, is that true? I am not positively sure. There are so many scriptures in the Word that have been messed with, and this happened after the Tower of Babel, that there's been so many truths taken out. You know, if you study history and what really happened during the Inquisition and what has happened in the world and what they've got in the museums and what they're holding on to, the truths they're holding back. And the book of Enoch, it says, would come out in this last generation, the one when the time has come for him to return. And, you know, from my studies too, with Eve's name being Hawa, and that's a derivative of the great uncreated creator's name. It says any man born of a woman can be redeemed, and then born of the water of the Spirit, you have to be born again. Was the Savior and Creator a man or a woman? We don't really know. You know, why does Satan hate women so much and has tried to turn all these women into lesbians and turn all these men into gay faggots so that they're not taking wives and taking care of women? So I'm just, you know, putting that idea out there. I really wonder what the whole truth is. I believe that, you know, there is a sovereign, uncreated creator who created all things, even that devil and Satan himself, and that he's going to make sure when the 1,000-year millennium, when the real truth comes out, that all truth will be revealed and told to his children so that they won't be deceived anymore, and that Satan will not deceive the nations anymore. So, talk to you all later, and I will try to get another video out about my shortened version of Namesake Confession, you know, which comes from the original, my book, Clearing My Heavenly Father's Name. And everything I've done is for the kingdom of heaven, the Malahim, the Shamayim, to Sakanu, righteous kingdom. And the devil will not steal from me anymore. And I'm willing to die for my faith and what I believe. And I know that I will resurrect with my righteous, uncreated creator, the Most High, and that the highest of the high sits on the throne, and that he will make all things new. Or she, he, she. If it's the uncreated creator is a Tzaddik Nagid, a king, or a queen, or a king and a queen, a mother and a father. I know that from what I found, the Ruach HaKodesh is the original way to say Holy Spirit, and that it is a feminine spirit if you study these words and these names in the Aramaic Hebrew. So to the Most High, the highest of the high, be the praise. And I don't want to use the word glory, because I don't, you know, praise Gloria, a woman or whatever, or any gods or fallen angels. You know, he said, have no other gods before me. And gods go back to sons of God, which are the fallen angels, which if you go to Alan Horvath, there's a video explaining that Satan's name is God, Dog Star. So all things will be made new. And the Most High, the highest of the high, Hawa Kadesh, is what I have found the closest thing to be the name. And I show links on my other videos showing that you can go to the Aramaic Hebrew translation of Sarah's daughter, and the guy reads it to you and explains this to you. You know, I hope that the truths that I have discovered, that I disclose, and that I have shared will help bring people out of the darkness and make the 2 Chronicles 7:14 prophecy take place, that if my people will humble themselves and pray, or say the word, call out to me by my true name, because I don't believe in preying on anybody. I don't want to be anybody's prey. But call out to him, to the Most High's true name, then I will heal their land. I don't believe there's been any healing in this land and all the other names that all these religions call on, because we lost the true name. So, Barakoth, blessings to all who are trying to seek the truth, find the truth, live in truth, be truth, and get all lies and deceit out of you, and get right with the Most High, the great I am. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. I wish everyone who can be saved, who is not the devil or Satan or devil or demon or whatever in disguise, fallen angel, whatever, category of evil is in this world that can't be saved. This message is for the elect, the select, the children of the Most High, who want to get right, who want to become without sin, and Kodesh, meaning set apart. So take care and have a good birth in the truth, which will give you the Immaculate Conception and true salvation and your new birth, your new you, who you need to be, that He created you to be, all that you were created to be. Thank you for listening.